Hi, this is Chris Howard, and we're back once again, this time in Los Angeles, California, with Mr. Bill Bartmann, and I'm so thrilled to have you here. You know, I've been wanting to meet you forever.
Well, Chris, thank you, and it's my honor, and I mean that honestly, to be able to come and be on your stage. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Now, you can introduce yourself better than I could introduce yourself. I know that
I've known me longer.
You've known you longer, yeah. You've been. Yeah, so. There's a couple of highlights, and you were once the 25th richest man in the United States. Maybe you could just throw out a couple of the other big achievements that you would consider.
Sure. Well, from a business side, I've been blessed and fortunate, and started off in poverty and welfare and all that rags to riches thing that everybody's heard 1,000 times from everybody. But I've had some unique attributes. I've been able to be named National Entrepreneur of the Year twice by NASDAQ, Inc. magazine, and Business Week and Forbes and Wall Street Journal. And I did something even more peculiar than that. I created a company that became an Inc. 500 company 4 years in a row, which means that it was one of the 500 fastest growing companies in America 4 successive years. Not just once and fly up and fly down, but for 4 years it was one of the fastest growing companies. Went from number 347 to number 37 to number 8 to number 6. But more relevant than that to me and perhaps to other people, we started with a $13,000 loan and grew it to a $3.5 billion company.
Wow.
That's cool stuff.
So now, where did you make your money? What was it?
We made our money in a debt collection company of all things, and it's kind of a great little story that I didn't know anything about the business other than I knew how not to do it, because I had been broke. Kathy and I, my wife of now 35 years, we went broke in the oil and gas business in 1986, and creditors were hounding us as they do, and we would say to ourselves, well, why can't somebody do it right? Why can't they just treat people with dignity and respect? Yeah, I can't pay my bills right now, but I'm still a good guy. I just don't have any money right now. Why can't they kind of cut me some slack and just treat me with, kindness rather than yelling and screaming? And with that epiphany, we said, well, why don't we go do that? And in the middle of bankruptcy, well, absolutely flat broke, we went to a bank that I owed $1 million to and borrowed $13,000. Now that bank had 1 million reasons to say yes, because if I could be successful in my next business, I'd repay.
That's fascinating. So the bank you owed $1 million to paid you, and you weren't. Were you paying that bank back at the time?
Yes.
Oh, you were.
Yes, because
okay.
I paid him. I was at the point of promise with him. I had already gone bankrupt, so the debt was officially wiped out. But I went back to the bank and said, I don't care what the law says. I still owe you the money. So I promise you, I'm going to pay it back. Oh, by the way, I need $13,000 to start a new business. If I'm going to pay you back, I got to be in business. I can't go pay you back $1 million by getting a job. That'll take me like 4 lifetimes. So they thought I was a good enough bet. They lent me $13,000 to go do a business I had never done, didn't know. I was the chief cook and bottle washer. Kathy was the only other employee, and she didn't want to do any of the work. I mean, this lady is raising my baby, so I didn't make her do any of the other work. So I was calling people up. I was doing the collection calls. I was doing the accounting. I was doing the bookkeeping. I was doing the marketing.
You just started this on your, well, you must have worked in conjunction with agencies or something that would.
No. I started on the kitchen table in Muskogee, Oklahoma by going to a failed bank and buying a box of bad loans. I paid pennies on the dollar for what they thought were worthless loans, because these borrowers hadn't paid them.
They said, we're never going to get this back. Here, you take it.
Yep, and for pennies. And all I did was treated those people differently. I'd call them up, and if you were the example, I'd say, Chris, I just bought your loan from Ajax Bank, and you owe $5,000, and I know you can't pay me $5,000 because they've already tried to collect $5,000. Could you pay me $500? If you could pay me $500, Chris, I'll make this whole thing go away. Now, I would have paid a penny on the dollar for that. So I got $50 invested. You pay me $500. I just made $450
wow.
in a phone call. Now you magnify that by thousands of people.
And you're making all these calls yourself?
Yeah. Well,
just dialing for dollars.
Until I could make enough money to hire my second employee. And guess what I hired first? I hired a good collector. And then that person made even more money than I was making at it. And
was it one of those rude people?
No.
Okay.
We never hired. I had a total of 3,900 employees in this company. It went from a kitchen table to 3,900 employees. And it took 13 years. It didn't happen overnight. We never hired an experienced collector. We were the largest, most efficient debt collection operation in the world, and we never hired anybody with experience.
So you hired a good collector, not an experienced collector.
If you had ever collected a loan, we didn't hire you.
Interesting.
Because we didn't want people who are good at collecting loans. We wanted people who are good at being people. We'll teach them how to collect loans.
And what was so important? Well, I know your personal experience with you'd seen the other side, but do you think that the people that you were hiring, was that something that added to your ability to actually collect?
Absolutely, because if you hire people that are doing it the way the industry does it, they will keep on doing it that way. We hired people that didn't know how to collect a loan. So we could teach them the right way. It's kind of like when you go to military or in the military, they put you through boot camp. What they're really doing is wiping out all the stuff that's in your head so they can put their stuff in your head. Well, that's what we had to do with our new recruits. We had to teach them how to go do it. And when you just treat people with dignity and respect, that resonates every time. I mean, we say dogs can smell fear. People can smell BS. And when you're being disingenuous, when you're lying to somebody, when you're fibbing to them or trying to get in their billfold, we have a radar dish, we people, and we pick it up in a heartbeat. Well, just the opposite is also true. When you're honest, when you're sincere, when you're genuine, people pick that up just as quick.
You know, I am so impressed with your ability to see the need there in your time of distress, at that time when things really weren't working for you, and they're pounding on you, for you to be able to recognize that as a need and then say, "How would I capitalize on that?" That's awesome. That it's just kind of an aside, but it stands out in my mind as being something.
Well, that's where great fortunes are made. Great fortunes are made seeing what doesn't work and fixing it, finding a solution to a problem. Now, most of us, we've gone to restaurants and we've had lousy service. We've gone to department stores and we've had lousy service. Well, he who can solve that problem will make a ton of money. These are just examples of finding a need and filling it. Most people just put up with stuff rather than saying, could I do that? Could I actually start a business that treated people different than the way they're being treated? And if the answer is yes, they will beat a path to your door.
So now, how big did you build that business to?
With 3,900 employees, international company. We had offices around the world. $3.5 billion net worth.
Wow, so you took the company public?
No.
Never?
Never.
Always privately held?
Yes.
Wow.
Never gave up a penny of equity.
No kidding?
Never. No, you don't have to.
Was it all self-funded, or was it?
No, I always use other people's money. Yeah. I borrowed $3.1 billion in the course of doing this, and never gave up a drop of equity. See, that's what people, they believe myths. It's like old wives' tales, like, well, you have to have collateral, you have to have experience, you have to know somebody. Baloney. No, that's not that at all. It's other things that are just common sense, that if people understood how easy it is to borrow money, they would all do it. And giving up equity is like the stupidest thing you can ever do in a business. If you think the business is going to succeed, why would you give up some of it for a few dollars of loan money? Ugh.
But then you've got the huge loan payments. I mean, there's got to be, there was no problem in paying those payments?
As long as you're making more than it's costing you, you're in good shape. If your business won't support it, then it's a bad business. If your business can't afford to pay back what it is you're borrowing, you probably shouldn't even be in that business.
So are you just saying that debt financing is better across the board?
100%.
Really?
Absolutely unequivocal. And I know, probably I don't say every venture capital and equity fund in the United States, but I know a lot of them. And I say this when they invite me on their stage. And it sounds like the Antichrist showing up because I'm preaching some other gospel. Debt is always better than equity. Always. If you think the company's going to succeed. If you think the company's just going to be marginal, it's just going to produce a 10, 15, 20% return, okay, that's a different example. I don't even want to talk to people who only want a 15 to 20% return. I want people who want 1,000% of return. I want people who want to quadruple their investment. I want people who, in our case, we grew our company 15,000% a year. 15,000% a year. And you go, are you on crack? No, no. It's so much easier to think big than it is to think small. And most people, they just want to think, well, I'm going to get a 10% growth factor. I'm going to grow by 12% next year. Well, you're going to have to spend about the same amount of time whether you grow at 12% or 1,200%. Which one do you think would pay better? Let me show you how to do it at 1,200%. You'll still have to put in a lot of time, effort, and energy, but you get rewarded better. It works.
So now, well, I'm just, it's a different concept. It's not what I'm used to hearing.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm a different kind of guy.
Well, that's obvious. I mean, you wear the black silk tee. And
there you go. Yeah. I'm the only guy that in the business doesn't own a coat, and I don't want one. I love.
And you live in Oklahoma, and you make a fortune.
And I can do that, and they can't make me move.
So now, what happened to this business? Because you no longer have this business.
Yeah, I do no longer have the business. My business partner, we brought in a business partner at some point, who committed a crime. And he went to prison, and when that happened...
In the business itself?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, he did it in a sub-company, and, it's kind of like one rotten apple spoiling the whole thing.
Right.
And this is back in the Enron days, Enron, WorldCom, Tyco.
So
yeah, it's like the Salem witch hunt, when somebody yells fire, everybody runs for the door. So it literally tanked the company. But that's life.
Now, when you say a business partner, was he an equity partner? He was.
He was one of the. He came in as a late founder when the company. He supplied the information technology. That was his real claim to fame.
Got it. So you did have other equity partners beyond just yourself then?
Yes, but not a lending equity.
Got it.
He was a.
Got it. It was a
co-founder.
Yeah. Got it. So then that tanked the whole business then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And at that point, what did you do?
Sat around and moped.
Yeah,
you do. I mean, you spend 13 years of your life building something up, and then one afternoon somebody else does, and I'm not putting it off on him and trying to cast blame, but still facts are facts. Somebody does something that causes something else to fall apart. The first reaction is shock, awe, disbelief, and you go through these 7 emotions, starting with denial to rage to anger to all that kind of stuff. But quickly you can get over to the other side and say, okay, that's a bad hand. How do I play it well?
So did you lose everything at that point?
Yeah, and everything is a relative term. When you have $3.5 billion and you're 25th wealthiest person in America, and you quit being that's like no fun.
Yeah, that's devastating.
Yeah, it is.
So how did you turn it around? How did you emotionally? How did you turn it around?
Well, you heard my conversation this morning on your stage, and it starts with self-esteem. You've got to believe in who you are and what you are, no matter what's going on in your life. So when I was broke and poor, I didn't think that was me. And when I was rich and successful, I didn't think that was me. Bill Bartmann is Bill Bartmann. I am whatever it is I am, and I have my talents, my gifts, my attributes, my experiences, whatever that is. And all the surface stuff isn't me. So when I have a great day, I celebrate it marginally. When I have a bad day, I acknowledge it. But I don't let either one become me. And so it wasn't as devastating on me as it would have been on somebody else. I did say, oh crap, probably used a different expression. But then I said, okay, what do I have to do to get out of here? I mean, and maybe you've seen that Tiger Woods is a spokesman for a company called Accenture, and they use him in all their ads. And they show him standing in the rough with the grass growing up to his knees and the club head down and his eyeballs looking out. And he's looking towards the green somewhere. And it shows a little line coming in. It says 90%, how we got there, 10% how we get out of there. That's the way most people think. And Tiger does it exactly the opposite. He only spends 10% of his time looking at how he got into trouble, and he spends 90% of his time on how to get out of trouble. That's what I try to do.
But were you able to do it in that case? I mean, how long did you sit in? I'm just curious, because I know that's, I mean, that has got to be devastating. How long did you sit there? How much did you beat yourself up? I want to hear.
I don't think I ever spent a lot of time beating me up. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't think I had some blame, some culpability.
Right.
This guy was my best friend. He's my business partner for 20 years. He was doing something illegal. I should have seen it.
Right.
I didn't. That was my fault.
Right.
So my lack of doing something was my problem.
Right.
Had I been more skeptical or more cynical or less trusting, I probably could have headed it off at the pass. So that I did.
So you're talking about taking responsibility, but I mean, in terms of sulking or, because so many people, I mean, that could send somebody into a depression. You just didn't go there. You
didn't. Not to say that I hadn't been there in my life.
Right.
Because previous, I failed more than once. I've been a millionaire 3 times. I've been bankrupt twice and a billionaire once. I have been on the roller coaster of life. Right. So this is not my first rodeo.
Yeah.
It wasn't the very first time I'd ever failed. The first time I failed was really hard. I thought it was the end of the world. Remember when you break up with a girl when you're 16 and you want to commit suicide? Because you think, oh my God, they won't date me anymore. Well, look how silly we think that is now. Well, so too on business failures. Once you've had one and you live through it and you look back and say, that wasn't fun and I never want to do it again, but it's not fatal. So when this one happened, I had already had experiences that said, okay, I'm in the rough, I didn't land in the fairway, the grass is up to my knees, and I'm a long way away from the green. I need to figure out how in hell I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah, I guess spend 90% of my focus
That's right.
doing it.
Yeah, on how do I get out, not whose fault is it, or what did I do, or beat me up, or crawl up on a ball and hide underneath the sheets. No, I did that in an earlier failure where I literally spent 6 months not even wanting to come out of the house. I didn't want to face anybody because I was ashamed and embarrassed that I had failed.
So what was different? Was it just the fact that you had the experience of being there, or what differentiated those two experiences?
Two things. One, the experience of having survived something makes you stronger. Nietzsche's theory of that which does not kill me makes me stronger, and there's a lot of truth to that. And the second part is, I believe in self-esteem. I believe that we are capable of so much more than we ever let ourselves believe. Having survived failure actually improved my self-esteem. I started looking and saying, wow, I did that. And having survived failure was more important to me than having been successful. Because I said, a lot of people have been successful, but very few people can deal with failure. Wow, I must be okay. And in self-esteem, all we want to be is okay. And so when failure came the next time, I said, I can do this. I have a great role model. I know a guy that just went through something like that. Me.
Right. So now, what did you do? You had to start from scratch. You had to start again. When I say from scratch, I don't know. Did you have money in the bank? Did you not have money?
Yeah, we had a little by relative scale, millions instead of billions.
Right.
And there's that zero. Boy, is that last zero really important?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you go from 9 zeros down to 8 zeros to 6 zeros, wow, that's a change in lifestyle.
That reminds me of Richard Branson's quote where he says, "How do you become a millionaire? Easy. Start a billionaire and buy an airline."
Yeah. And it's just a zero. And you say a zero, that's nothing. There's no value on a zero. There is if you're putting it on the string with a dollar sign in front of it. Yeah. So we didn't have absolutely nothing. What we really had was what we already possessed inside of us. And I say we, Kathy, we said we have succeeded, we have failed, we've learned a lot, we've done a lot. That's a value. Why don't we go trade that, exchange it for currency? There are people in this world who would love to have what it is we have, knowledge, experience, and they will pay us for it. So all of a sudden we found ourselves in a new business, this business.
Education.
Yes, saying, I know a lot about a lot of things, not because I'm smart, not because I have a great education or a great IQ, because it's not about those things. It's about experience. And since I have these great experiences, why don't I go share them with people who want to learn about that?
Do you consider yourself to be a coach or a teacher or a mentor or all of the above?
All of the above. And a person who hugs people. I hug everybody I meet.
You do. You hugged me a couple of times.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Well, nothing personal. I'm a flaming heterosexual, but I love hugging people because what it does is you're letting people into your space. You're telling them they're okay. And you're not putting up a wall or a shield or being pretentious or thinking you're better than them. I'm not better than anybody. I am different than everybody. You are different than everybody. There's 6.3 billion of us on the face of the earth, and we're all different from everybody else. Why don't we just honor and celebrate our differentness instead of all of our weaknesses and all those comparisons of, well, I'm not as pretty as, not as tall as, not as good looking. No, I'm never going to be Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's never going to be me, and I'm okay with that. I still am mad about the Angeline thing, though. No, don't tell Kathy.
I won't say a word. So now, what's your typical day like? How do you manage your time, or what's a day for you like?
Time is my most precious resource. I'm 59 years old, and having been around the circle now a couple of times, you get a whole new sense of appreciation for things that kind of get away from you. And I'll tell you honestly, I probably wasn't a great father when I was going through life, and I probably wasn't a great husband. But now I'm a grandpa. Both my daughters have each given me a grandson, and I am going to be the world's best grandpa. And that's my job. I take that as my serious role in life, that I've got to be a good grandpa. And so all of a sudden you say, well, making money and doing all these things we do to make the cash register ring and pay the rent and all that kind of stuff, that really is just a piece of who I really am. Grandpa is a big deal to me. So I want to be a great husband and a great father again too, but I don't think you get the chance to make up for lost time. So you have to kind of substitute. I want to be like the best grandpa in the whole world.
Was family so important to you as you were building the first business? Did you have the same values?
No. And I say that honestly. I put money and success ahead of everything. To get 9 zeros in your life, you have to be absolutely focused on the 9th zero. And
Was being a billionaire, was that a goal for you?
it became one. It
Hitting
wasn't.
that
It wasn't when we started. When we were at the kitchen table, starting at $13,000. No, I wanted to eat. I wanted to pay rent. I wanted to be able to buy groceries. I mean, that was my goal. You know, get through Friday. Yes. But then all of a sudden we saw it's working. We're making a lot of money. We're a millionaire. And we thought, ooh. What if we put this on steroids? What if we bump it up? What if we take it to the next level? What if we grow it at thousands % instead of 10%? Then we could do this. Well, at that point, I then had to really fixate on what do I have to do in order to turn this into a wildly successful business. Now, when you do that, it's kind of like mountain climbing, and I know you're an athlete and you do a lot of physical stuff. And the metaphor is so appropriate because we talk about getting to the top of the mountain in our business. When you're climbing a mountain, you start at the bottom and you have your support team around you and you have all your paraphernalia. But as you move up to the next base camp, you leave stuff behind, things you don't need anymore or you don't need for the trip. And then you go to the next level and you leave even more things. And then you go one more time and you leave almost everything. And when you're ready to go to the summit, you're by yourself and you have nothing with you. You've left everything behind. Well, in business, we do that too. And I'm not suggesting it's right. I'm telling you it's wrong. I'm telling you I learned a lesson about it. I got to the top. 25th wealthiest person in America, the cover of Inc. magazine, you know, all of this kudos, acclamations, awards, all this stuff. And I stood on top of that mountain and looked back and saw all the people I left behind. And thought, was that a good trade? Was that really a good trade?
What did you think at the time?
The answer was no, that it wasn't a good trade. That I could have settled for less money, maybe $100 million, and still had all the good stuff.
But do you think that it's dichotomous, that it's this or that you'd have to you either leave them behind and make the success or not?
I thought that then.
Yeah.
At that moment, in those days, I thought, Chris, you can't have them both. I believe that. I thought you had to be Bill Cosby, Mr. Family Man, or you had to be the guy climbing the mountain. You couldn't be both because that'd be like being schizo. And I was wrong. This time around, Kathy and I and my girls and my niece Susie and all my family members, we're all going back up that mountain together, but we're holding hands this time. And we're making more money and we're doing wonderful things and success is so good again, thank you. But this time we're doing it as a group of people.
And as you do it as a group of people, do you have big financial goals ahead of you? Are there...
Oh, absolutely. I will turn this into a $1 billion business. This business, that which I do, the Bill Bartmann thing, for lack of a more precise term, of just teaching people my experiences, it's a great revenue producer.
Now, is it about building, and back when you hit the billionaire status before, was it about building the business to a $1 billion business or a multi-billion dollar business, or was it about becoming a billionaire yourself? What was it really about?
For me, it was more about building a $1 billion business because I knew the tail behind the dog would be pretty rewarding. I knew that if I could do that, there's going to be some left on the table for me. and it was easier to think about building the business into a $1 billion concept than it ever was of even seeing myself as a billionaire, because that's a pretty far stretch.
Sure. Now, did your lifestyle change much when you hit that stage?
Oh, yeah. Gulfstream, Ford, jet aircraft, 5 Secret Service guys follow me around every single day. I mean, I couldn't be sitting here without 2 of them sitting between us somewhere. And I mean, how do you describe that lifestyle? Where my take-home paycheck in 1 year was $100 million.
Wow.
My after-tax.
That was your after-tax
take-home. Yeah, and you go, that's a good year.
Wow.
Yeah. 1 year I made $500,000 a day for 365 days in a row. $500,000 a day, every day for 365 days in a row. Mother-in-law day, Groundhog Day, and Flag Day. It mattered now with a holy day of obligation or a holiday.
What'd you do with all that money? I mean, that's besides the jet.
Most of it we poured back into the people. 1 year I took 6,000 of my employees to Disney World. I rented 27 747s and I flew 6,000 people to Disney World. 1 year I rented Thomas and Mack Arena in Las Vegas and brought every employee and their spouse to watch me wrestle Hulk Hogan. And
you wrestled Hulk Hogan?
Yeah. And for $250,000,
you didn't beat him up too bad, did you?
$250,000, he'll take a fall.
Oh, you know that.
Yeah. See, I'm the guy that's written the check. He will take a fall.
Did he do it?
Yes.
So you paid the money?
Yes. We put him in the middle of Thomas and Macarena. I wrestled him in the ring. We had Michael Buffer do the announcing.
That's fantastic.
No, it was great. It's cool stuff. That's what you do. You do outlandish stuff, but you do it for other people, and it was great.
Now I know a lot of what you teach today. You teach a lot about borrowing.
Yes.
Is that the core of the curriculum of the?
It really is. It's about starting a business, growing a business, writing a business plan, writing a marketing plan. But the mothership is always borrowing money. You've got to do these things, the marketing and the business plan, to borrow money. So borrowing money is the objective, because borrowing money is where most people fail. They already have a good idea. They could be taught to write a business plan. They do know a little bit about marketing, and they can probably learn some more. But until they figured out how to borrow money, all that other stuff probably isn't going to take them to the promised land. It's just going to make them a nice job. Well, they already had a job. I want to get them really successful. I want to get them where every year they add 1 0 onto their business. So if their business is making $100,000 this year, I want to take them up to $1 million next year. If it's making $1 million, I want to take them to 10 million. Making 10 million, I want to take them to 100 million. 1 0 at a time.
Now, how about somebody that's starting a business that has nothing, no collateral? There's nothing to that. It's possible for somebody like that to
Absolutely.
To borrow large amounts of money.
Absolutely. No, and large being relative again.
Right.
They're not going to. Somebody with no credit, no history, no background, no experience, and no knowledge of the industry is going to have a hard time borrowing $100 million for an idea. Because that would be like a non-starter for most smart people who have money. Don't do stupid things.
Right.
But you borrow little money, you prove the idea up, you prove the concept. So I started with $13,000 because I didn't have any of those things. I didn't have credit, I didn't have any collateral, I didn't have anybody to co-sign, I didn't have any history, I didn't have any experience, I didn't have any knowledge about the industry. So borrowing a lot of money would have been hard, if not impossible. Borrowing a little was easy. Once I could prove I could do it, borrowing bigger money.
What did you have to? You borrowed 13. What did you have to prove for the next step?
In 45 days after I borrowed the $13,000, I had paid back the $13,000 and asked for $100,000.
No kidding.
And they gave it to me because I already paid back the $13,000. I collected $63,000 in 45 days, which meant I paid back $13,000 that they gave me and had $50,000 left over.
And was that the process? It was just a continual process of getting it, paying it back, getting it, paying it back. Did you pay it back before it was due?
In every instance.
In every instance.
In every instance, because what you do is you tell them it's going to take longer than you really think it is. That way, when you deliver it a day early, you're a hero. If you tell them something shorter and deliver it a day late on the very same day, we just use as an example, you're behind. Right. So I encourage my students, let's tell them it's going to take this long, even if we don't think we can do it in that long. Not tell them this and then show up and deliver that one. And yes, you can't, anybody can promise they can just sprinkle pixie dust on you and you're going to be different tomorrow is not dealing in reality. So somebody with bad credit and no history and no experience, we do it in steps. We just do it in steps. Let's prove up the idea. Let's prove you can do it. Let's prove you want to do it. Maybe it's a bad idea for you. How will you know until you go do it?
And when you say proving up the idea, are you saying prove it up by borrowing a little and proving it up?
Yes, yes.
What would one do prior to borrowing the money to know if it's even worthwhile?
Writing the business plan is a great way to challenge an idea. Most of us write business plans, or they teach us to write business plans to give them to somebody else. We ought to be writing a business plan to give to ourselves and saying, do I really believe this? Do I really think I can do this? Do I really think I'll sell this many by that date to this many people for this amount of dollars? And will it really only cost me that much to do it? Well, if we wrote a business plan first for ourselves, sometimes we talk ourselves out of a business idea. Or we become madly, passionately in love with the idea, saying, now I know it'll work. Now I've checked it out. And you think about the enthusiasm when you walk into a lender with that attitude in your face of, hey, look at this. Look at this. This is so cool. This is, oh, man. And when I do that, I'm going to be able to do this, and I can show this to those people. Wow. Now, am I going to get a loan from that guy as compared to walking in and saying, well, I think I can do it? It's the same thing, but one, I delivered it to me first and made sure I believed it. And there have been times when I got ready to start a business that I decided not to after writing my business plan and said, wow, there's a problem I don't know the solution for. Right. There's something I don't know the answer to. There's something I don't think I can solve. Wow, I found out there's more competition than I thought there was. Yuck.
Now, would this be this model that you have of borrowing up? would this be only relevant for certain types of business? And I'll just throw. Let me throw across. I've got a good buddy of mine who's he was one of the co-founders of Legendary Pictures. They make a lot of the superhero movies.
Yes.
And, yeah, his philosophy is, he says that when he's starting a business, it's like casting a movie. And if you have certain weaknesses in terms of your abilities, you go out and you find out who's the team, and he makes them all equity players. And then he goes out and he raises capital, and they had to raise $900 million for.
And they've done real well.
Yeah, they've done extremely well. I mean, they made the movie 300, and I think that movie cost them a total of $62 million, and it made probably 500 million, which was huge. So that when you look at that philosophy, I'm just attempting to map across and say, well, would you? I guess you could borrow up for that too. I'm not sure.
You can, yeah. And the example is Spielberg.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg right now is selling a piece of DreamWorks to a company in India for more leverage, more capital to go do more finance. Now, Steven Spielberg doesn't need to prove anything to anybody.
Right.
I mean, he is like...
Yeah, he's Steven Spielberg.
That's right. He's just good enough being Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
But here's a guy who's still borrowing money. Still borrowing money, next, higher, to go do more.
But isn't that through equity financing?
I don't know the terms. I don't know the terms, so I won't...
Yeah, I don't know.
Not sure.
It's fascinating to me. It's like all the different ways that one can finance a business or finance a dream or make it happen. It's just I'm interested in taking your course personally.
Good.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you.
Yeah.
I have never met a business that couldn't use more money, ever. I don't care if you're a multi-level marketing company and you say, well, you borrow money from multi-level marketing. Yes, you can. You can borrow money for marketing. You borrow money for advertising. You borrow money for recruitment. You borrow money for retention programs. You borrow money for all kinds of things. No, you need a plan and a way of doing it. Absolutely. But that's about as far out there as I can think about, because mostly we think about brick and mortar. Right. We think about, well, I have a shoe store and I sell shoes, or I have a bakery and I sell bagels. No, I don't care if you're in the business of selling ideas. You still could use more money. And if you had more money, you could do it faster.
Now, you not only teach people how to borrow money, you also hook people up with lenders, hook people up with...
Yeah, and I don't want to overrepresent that or misrepresent it. It's for people who, this is my students who go to the second level with me.
Right.
That gives me a chance to vet them while they're vetting me. And I mean that just as honestly as I can. When you first meet somebody, you can both sing a pretty good song. You both look like you have compatibility. And when you do business together, you begin to find out who you're really compatible with.
Sure.
I only offer that to the people whom I really get along with well and like and feel good about and feel like they're going to deliver their fair share of the heavy lifting.
Right.
Because I'm not carrying anybody over the finish line. Because I'm not going to.
Yeah, what's the point? I mean,
because all they can do is to get to the other end and say, carry me again.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to help those who want to help themselves. And if they're not interested in putting in some skin in the game and doing some work, then they need to go get somebody else to help them. And God bless them, and I feel okay about them, and I'm never going to speak negative, but that isn't who I want to spend my time with. I want to spend my time with the people who want to do good.
What's important to you in business?
Helping others right now. Yeah. It's the single most important thing, Chris, because I don't want to sound corny or soapy. I have been given a really great gift, and I recognize it, and I have my own spiritual beliefs. I'm not going to put them off anybody else or advertise them or suggest people ought to buy into what I've already bought into. But I have mine. They're very deep-rooted, and I believe that every one of us are unique, and every one of us have a certain gift and a talent. Mine is my life. My failures, my successes, my hardships, my triumphs, all of that. That's what I have that is so special, different, unique than anybody else on the face of the planet Earth. And if I take that to the grave with me without sharing it, shame on me. So the more people I can give some to, share it with, and help them, then the better job I've done. Now, am I going to be selective about who that is? Yeah, I don't believe in charity. I absolutely do not believe in charity. Charity sucks. I grew up on welfare. I grew up on food baskets at every holiday. I grew up with people showing up and giving me free stuff. Free didn't help me. When I finally figured out I had to go do it by myself, for myself, and bring a team of people around me who would support me in the doing of it, then good things happen. But while I'm sitting there with my hand out, no, and I don't want to be the guy putting stuff in somebody else's hand, because it doesn't do them any good.
Well, what are you most excited about right now in terms of the future, in terms of?
My marriage, my kids, my grandbabies, life. Those things that once upon a time I didn't value high enough have become so relevant and so precious that you just kind of go, God, you've got everything, Bartmann. You got everything. And it isn't about the money. It isn't about the stuff. It's about the people. You go, that's everything. Now, is money cool? Yeah, money's real cool. And I love money. But I know where they fit in life. And you get your relationships right, the money will catch you. You try to do money, you end up losing your relationships. There is an order.
I think we can leave it at that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, buddy.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.